Okay, I'm going to show you a physics engine called AetherX. It's forked from Aether.physics2D. Now, originally, this is something called Box2D, which I believe is in C++, and then it was ported over to C#. It was called Farseer, and that continued to evolve and advance. It was eventually abandoned, unfortunately, although you can find a lot of copies of the code base in various places. Aether Physics2D is the best fork of that physics engine I was able to find, and it's still maintained and advanced. He did a number of things with this, and you can see in my repository where it came from. You can hop over here, but he talks about multi-threading and other optimizations that he's incorporated. So I took that, and my goal here is to have a huge physics simulation without loading regions, be able to fit as much as possible into the game and allow the player to move through this physics simulation, kind of a sandbox experience, and have it be as large as possible. Now, the challenge there is no matter how large, you can continue optimizing it so you can make it larger and larger, but eventually it's going to break down. There are several things that I've done to just make it inherently more performant, so the world can be larger without losing as much frame rate. The largest of which is to incorporate a different kind of AABB collision detection. So the way this actually works in Farseer or Aether and just like the base physics engine is to take all the fixtures, and I'll show you what a fixture is if you zoom in. This is the actual physics engine. Currently things are hibernated. I'm going to unhibernate for things. If I zoom way in, all these dark pink, that kind of hot pink squares, each one of those is a fixture. Now the green is the bounding box, the AABB, axis aligned bounding box, I believe, around that body. Oop, it just opened, it just unhibernated another one. I'll show you how it's working a little later. But that's the principle. So the way the base physics engine works is each one of these pink fixtures checks every other fixture in the simulation to see if it overlaps. A better way to do that, a more performant way, is to actually just check the green bounding boxes and see if those overlap. If they overlap, then yes, you have to compare all of the fixtures with all the fixtures of the body that it's colliding with or overlapping with potentially, to see exactly which fixture hit and at what angle, at what position, and have the appropriate physical response. That's something that seems pretty intuitive. I'm actually surprised about how it already works. But now that is how it works. So take a look at the code, see how it's done. Maybe you can improve it further, or maybe you can find why this doesn't work. But it seems to work just fine, and I've tested in all the different test harnesses that are supplied. You could go a step further. Now, I believe when there is an overlap between these green bounding boxes, it then checks every pink fixture in the entire simulation. Really, a much better way to do that would be if it overlaps with another green bounding box, it then just checks the fixtures of one body against that other body. I don't believe that's currently in place, but it's a clear benefit to do it that way. All right, let me hop back to the repository. That was the first large optimization. There were a number of other smaller things, but the primary really exciting thing I want to talk about today is hibernation. So in this simulation, out of the box, things will be marked as sleeping. That's kind of base Box2D functionality that's been carried through all different generations. It's like it definitely helps with performance. Things are marked as sleeping, but they're still in the simulation. They're still calculated every frame. They're still counting towards the body and fixture counts. You can see up here. And so it's you can go further with that. If you think about it, the player only needs to see what's around them. There could be this huge, immense world around them, but if they're not interacting with it, you don't need to calculate every frame. And so the way I'm accomplishing that is by actually offloading objects if they're not within the player's current frame of view. And there are fairly extensive notes on that within the repo. We talk through here. The red area you'll see when I right-click, it creates an active area. That represents kind of what the player would see. I also have some notes here that I kind of took while developing it. These are not all 100% accurate, but I think it's useful to see kind of what I was thinking as I worked through it. And if you're interested in actually using this code and furthering this code or forking it, you probably want to read through this at least once. It's going to give you some context, and that might give you a few ideas of where else to go with it. Okay, so let's dive into the actual demonstration here. So again, this is a physical world. This chart you see at the top here is, I believe, CPUs. It's just the amount of processing power it's requiring. You'll see some counts of that up here for the number of objects, and then you also see how many are hibernated. In this case, I have hibernation enabled. So there's 22,000 fixtures hibernated, and there's only 14 which are active, which is probably this little guy down here, which is about to drift out of the active area and hibernate, at which point that'll drop to 0. That means these things are very performant right now. What is that, 0.2 milliseconds? Actually, the average frame is 0.0, let's call it 4 milliseconds. So you see that thing has now drifted far enough away that it hibernated, became the gray rectangle, and now the fixtures are down to 0. See, all these gray are the hibernated AABBs, axis aligned bounding boxes, and there's nothing currently active. All you see is the red so-called active area. Now you could have multiple of these in the game. You can have a multiplayer game, or let's say you want to hop over on the mini-map and look at something else. You create a new active area there because it awakens everything and makes sure that the physics is going to work there. For now, we're just going to use one. So right now the player's not seeing anything. They're in deep space, let's say. This is a space simulation. Now if I turn off hibernation and press tilde, you can see some additional settings around multi-threading and thresholds. Some additional tips. You can regenerate the world with different sizes to see how it performs. You can also generate different types of bodies to see how they perform. This is kind of my base test case, so I'm going to stick with this for now. You can press H to toggle hibernation. Now I'll press H now. You'll see everything kind of become pink and green. And that's all the bodies waking up, and they'll be in the simulation. You can watch this number up here under objects, and you'll see the number of bodies and fixtures. All these ones from the hibernated should move over to this leftmost list, which is the active world. Keep an eye on this graph too. It's going to spike way up. It's going to spike so far up, this will probably just be kind of the baseline. You won't see it much. And the frames per second, it's 0.03 milliseconds now. That'll be my practice. So keep an eye on all that. I'm going to hit unhibernate now. This disables hibernation and gets it back to kind of the base physics engine that I started with. There you go. You see the baseline. You really can't even see where we were before. Now we're way up here, performance-wise. An average of 8.7 milliseconds per frame. Still pretty good, but it'd be much better, especially if you want to have a really immense world. You see hibernation's not applicable. You see everything's over here. Now we have 22,000 fixtures on the active one. You see all the contacts, all these collisions that are occurring every frame. We can zoom in, see all these things bopping around. So this, if you're just looking at this area as a player, you're flying around these ships, this is all that needs to be added. You don't need this and this and this and this and this. So let's hibernate all that. This is the totally hibernated world. Let's say I join this world as a player. I log in, I show up right, I log in and I show up right here. First thing I see, everything's active. Now I'm flying around, and everything I run into, as soon as I can see it, and you could make this active area a little larger than their view area if you wanted to have some buffer, but even if it wasn't, anything I can see that I would be able to interact with, as soon as I can see it, it's active and it's moving, and it persists the former velocity it has, and spin, and it's pretty slick. And you can see the performance is still fantastic. You look at the chart in milliseconds, and you can look at the number of active objects that are hibernated. And although we have this immense world with all these bodies, as we fly around, you're only seeing what you need to see, and it's extremely performant. Kind of simple in theory, but in looking at the code, you'll see the devil's always in the details with this stuff, and it took quite a bit to get this to work. And then we can zoom out and demonstrate. You can fly through rapidly in the world, and that's fine. We'll wake everything up. It's kind of cool. You'll see the older objects start phasing out. The newer ones are still in there. It's partially based on timing, how long it's been since something like a collision has occurred to them, and it's based on how many other things are near them, things of that nature. But it should be to a point where you still have the simulation's integrity. So you'll never see something weird like a ship flying through another ship. Like these two look quite close. These bounding boxes overlap. But if I were to wake them up, you'll see The actual fixtures don't overlap. Yeah, they were pretty close, and they bumped as soon as we woke them up. But they would never actually overlap and give you some kind of invalid hibernation state. And you'll see it's kind of cool as things leave this bounding box. Initially, you think as soon as they leave the active area, just hibernate. Why do you care? Well, you care because they might at that point actually overlap something else. That's when you can get that invalid scenario. So as things are leaving, where's a good area to demonstrate this? Maybe here. As things leave the active area, they don't just automatically hibernate. They get their own little active area, and that could in turn cause a chain reaction. If they get near to another hibernated body, it'll wake up that body, and then they might fly apart and split into their own active areas, and again bump into something else. So it can cause a bit of a chain reaction. It requires a little bit of game design, because if it's so dense that there's no way for anything to ever kind of be on its own for long enough, nothing would hibernate. As soon as you woke up one area, it would kind of spread out, wake up everything, and hibernation wouldn't really matter that much. But I think for most games, you're going to have enough free space so that things can hibernate nicely. So let's wake up these guys. As this one leaves, as this one leaves, this one's going to hit one. Woke it up, and then because the timer did, it actually went back to sleep. It is based off the amount of time they've spent out of hibernation, I think, and maybe since last collision. I'd have to look at the code, but it's done in a way where they will gradually return to hibernation. That kind of favors trying to find a scenario where that can occur. Kind of watch and wakes up that guy. He kind of bounces back. Now anything that's in the active area is never. Oh, we almost made it back. Just give him a little bit, wake him up, and then he'll continue flying through. That's the basic idea. You see, performance is great. Now this is kind of an open world, so it doesn't have like as many. It's not like Angry Birds where you have them bouncing into each other and dropping and falling. So let's look at another test harness that's a little bit more like that. Through it. There's a number of test harnesses. You can just hold the right arrow. Not all of them are valid, but this one's a nice one to look at. This is just the normal setup. Let me see, can I go back? Yeah, resets. Okay, so let me show you without hibernation. Here, kind of toss these guys around. It's just a basic stack. It just shows, this ground, I believe these are static. All these boxes down here, but it's just a basic tumbling tower of blocks. I think you can press like F1 and stuff like toggle some of the stuff off, but I usually keep it all on so I can see everything. All right, so let's reset that. And let's enable hibernation. And the whole world hibernated can't interact with it because your clicks won't resolve because there's nothing there. This is all in the different like shadow world that doesn't interact with anything, and that's why it's performant. And you see now we have our awesome performance drop way down. Let's unhibernate it. Actually, let's keep it hibernated and let me turn on. Let me just say my player walks over here onto this platform. It would look like that. Now it didn't wake up all of these blocks because it's not in my. I can't see that yet, and because it's in static, these aren't going to affect this at all. So there's no reason to wake those up. Now, as I walk over here, let's say, a little closer. I'm walking over, and as soon as I touch this first one, you'll see it'll wake up, and then it'll wake up its neighbor, it'll wake up its neighbor, and it will happen. It's a chain reaction. Check it out. Cool. Now all those are active. I believe as long as I'm here, they're going to need to be active because they're all touching each other, and I'm touching it. Now, if I took a step back, like that, you should see these. You should see them hibernate. There you go. Now let me see what I want to do. I'll wake them up, and you see all these points to the center of the hibernation area that they're within. So let's see what flies. Let me look a little better if I go like this. I'm going to toss a few of these up, and then I'll move the active area away, and we'll kind of see what happens. So force all those up. We're going to move our active area away. They should go back to sleep once they're done with all their business. The one sliding over there is going to stay around, but now they're all hibernated. Okay, let's wake them up again. Now you see this. Now if I walk over here, it'll wake those three up, but it doesn't even wake all these because they're not touching. Same probably with this guy. Yeah, he doesn't care. When you start getting over here, they're all going to wake up. That's where you could argue level design comes into it. Because if you stack them all together like this, it's going to cause a chain reaction. So you want to have either, you just have to test it out and see how it reacts. But static objects, because they don't ever move, they don't need to have their own active area. And so that's a good way to still have game objects there and prevent that, kind of give a buffer that prevents chain reactions. All right, let me just toss a few of these. So I guess now that I have these guys over here, I can just link these out. And I think these will go to sleep. I don't think they will. Let's see. Just wait for the timer to complete. That's interesting. I think those are close enough that the bounding boxes kind of connected them and thought this is one region. They were a little too close. That's what I'm guessing there. All right, let me throw this guy up. Oh, you're in too far. Just pop this guy a little bit. Also too far. Okay. We're going to get a few over here. I don't realize how powerful I am. And I'll let these guys go to sleep. I just want to show you that when something kind of goes from an active into an inactive, it will wake it up. Quite interesting. It's grouping these together into this orange kind of sub-active area. It's not like a player-controlled active area. It's like a physics active area for performance. I'm surprised that it brings this little gap here. I have to look into why that is. Okay, so here these ones are awake. Let me just give them a little flip. Yeah, I'm done. Boom. Now we wake all those guys up and go back to sleep. Toss them over, toss them over. And you'll see the physics integrity is here. Hopefully they go to sleep just before it hits. And it wakes it up and moves it. And you could fling all these up, and then move it. And you kind of see how I haven't flung them far enough up on this place, right up here. You'll see they could freeze in midair too if you're kind of far enough out of the action. Okay, there we go. You'll see one's hibernated up here. Some of these, yeah. Oh, he woke them up because he fell into them, and they made it all the way back down. I think one froze up here. So you'll see, if they get too far out of the action, they will hibernate, but otherwise they'll keep waking up anything that they run into. This is a good test case because with so many objects so close and bumping into each other, the hibernation didn't work very well. If it had any flaw in the integrity of an object, maintaining its space and bumping into other things and waking them up when it gets near to them, this power wouldn't stack. And I know that because in testing it often didn't work. So now it does work. So that's the basic idea of it. Turn off hibernation, they all come back. And again. So hopefully that makes sense and is compelling. I think it works really well. It definitely lets you make much larger worlds, which was the entire goal. There's definitely more to be done with it. But feel free to hop over to my repository here, which I'm showing on the screen, so you can find that. I'll add it to the notes as well. Plenty more to read here. I try to give you a quick overview. I don't know how quick it turned out being, but hopefully it shows the rationale behind it and gives you kind of a conceptual overview. Now, I wrote this code maybe a year and a half ago. That's why some parts of it I'm kind of saying I'll have to look at the code to figure it out. Or I don't remember everything with full fidelity, just because it's been a little while. I'm kind of getting back into it, and I wanted to start with a little overview video to share it with the community and also for myself to kind of remember how this thing works. Now, the next things I'm going to be doing is adding gravity wells and fluid controllers and some destructible objects, and I'm going to kind of create a model of the solar system, because the purpose of this engine for me is to create a kind of solar system sandbox where you can fly around and interact with physics. So that'll be my next step, and maybe I'll upload another video to that effect. If you found this valuable or not, or you have criticisms or comments or anything, please leave some comments. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.